Yeah. There's no better way to start a stream than with dancing.
Only you can shout.
Alright, guys, so welcome back to the greatest show in the universe. So I'm your host, Zion, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. So let me jump in game here now. Okay, more, that's enough. I think you did your part. So what we're going to do here today is I'm going to start up a custom match. And we'll set the loot value to be a little bit lower because I'm actually only going to be spectating. We'll go ahead and advertise. Yeah, make sure that's good. I'm actually going to be spectator. So, this is the plan. I'm going to have you guys fight among yourselves for entertainment, like it's the gladiatorial games, while I spectate and watch. And what I'm going to be actually doing in this podcast is talking about kind of like future developments. And the whole idea is we're going to pick a specific topic of discussion for a future feature of the game that we kind of want to tweak and get your guys' feedback on in order to... Oh, we already got somebody. I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry. Amorai Forda. I hope I pronounced that right. So, the idea is we're going to pick a topic of discussion, we're going to discuss it, then we're going to post this video in the forum, and what we want you guys to do is go ahead and post any feedback you have, the questions, comments, in the forum, so that all the relevant feedback is all gathered in one place, and then we're going to be able to read it as our developers, discuss it internally amongst ourselves, and decide where to go from there. So today's topic of discussion is going to be matchmaking and league progression. So actually, let me get a few people into this battle before we get started on the actual topic itself. Go ahead and advertise in a few of these other chat channels. Wow, look at that. Wait. All that was from like last week. Obviously, this chat channel does not get a whole lot of traffic. Oh boy. The Turkish players really need to step it up. Your chat channel is completely like abandoned. So we'll go ahead, try to get some players in here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of bumping out players and try to rotate new players in, because that's going to get a little distracting, it's going to break up the flow of the podcast, I'm just going to leave whoever is going to be in this first battle. I'm going to let you guys do a couple of battles, and then, you know, maybe I'll rotate out some new people. But I don't want to be doing this like literally every match, because they'll just get too distracting. I'll lose my chain of thought. So we'll go ahead, make sure we got this all filled up. I think we have about half a crew now. Yep. So we'll try to get a few more players in here. Still have 3 more available positions. And then once this first match gets started, reading the Twitch channel here. Oh, that's a good point. I completely forgot about that. I probably should have went to the European server. So maybe that's what we'll do next week. Hello, Ghost Slayer. I think you participated in the player versus developer match on Saturday. So we're almost filled here. We just need one more. I'm seeing a lot of Yojis. This is going to be an epic battle of fire versus fire. The 4 Yojis, and we have 1 Forga. Alright guys, we need one more. Anyone can jump in at any time. And then once we get this started, I'll go ahead and get going on the topic. Yes, this is the North American server. I probably, in hindsight, should have went with the European server. It's still pretty early. It's only 1 o'clock here in the United States. Well, on the East Coast anyway. South America server? Well, maybe I'll do it South America next week. We'll figure it out. So it'll either be the European server or South America. Just so we can get these matches filled a little bit quicker. We still need one more. Anybody else want to join? Still have one more position. Let's see. Advertise this another channel. Oops. Probably about 5 minutes into the stream already, and we still don't have first match going. It's a little bit easier on the weekends when everybody's home from school. Generally get a match going within like 2 or 3 minutes. It's been like probably 5 or 6 now. See here. I can't really tell. Oh, I heard somebody. Awesome. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get this started. Very good, very good. I'm still seeing a lot of Yojis. A lot of Yoji mains here. Wow, they're all locked in, so 3 Yojis. Alright, so our first topic is going to be about matchmaking. So a lot of you guys have been complaining. So let's see. We'll focus on the red team. I'm going to watch the map here, the mini map. Try to focus on any places that's going to have the most action. So, matchmaking. A lot of you guys have been complaining about the fact that you've been facing a lot of bots. So we've had some recent changes to the matchmaking, actually I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And what we actually did was we created these different tiers. And what the tiers did was separate players into certain groups that would prevent them from playing against players of a higher tier. So the way this worked is we wanted new players to kind of have a chance to get familiar with the game, practice with their spells, learn the different game mechanics, learn the different game modes. So for instance, we have in this arena, you have to capture the checkpoints and then storm the enemy's bases, then you have to capture the flag, and you have the missile defense one, where you're capturing checkpoints to launch missiles at one another. So what we wanted to do is kind of give up like kind of a buffer time or zone where newer players could familiarize themselves with the game and kind of learn the different mechanics before they're thrown in to play against the higher level players who've been here for a longer period of time. So the tiers was 0 to 1,000. So if you had under 1,000 league points, you would basically only be playing against other players who had less than 1,000 league points, or you'd be playing against bots. Then it went from 1,000 to 2,000. So if you had above 1,000 league points but below 2,000, again, you would only be playing against other players who have above 1,000 but below 2,000. So the 5 different leagues, I think there was 5, it's 4 or 5. It was 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000 to 3,000, 3,000 to 5,000, and then 5,000 plus. So, once you had reached a league points of 5,000, what would happen is at that point you would be available to play against any player regardless of their league. So 5,000 I think puts you at the beginning of Gold League. You could be playing against players as high as the Platinum League. So you could be playing against people in Platinum 1. So the issue with that is because of the let's get the stats so we can give credit to all the people who have participated. So here we go. It seems like the MVP was Siru, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, with 4 kills and only 2 deaths. So really good job. And wow, it looks like you were, did I get that right? It looked like you were in Bronze League. So that's very impressive. Good job. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep We're going to keep the same team. We're going to probably try out different game modes. So we'll go ahead and change the arena. But instead of switching out new players that will break up the flow of this, I'm already losing my train of concentration here. We'll just keep the same team. So what happens is if you were enter Gold League, you have 5,000 league points. You would be eligible to play against any player regardless of league. So you might find yourself against somebody who has 20,000 league points in Platinum 1. So that's kind of a little bit of an imbalance, especially considering the fact
Unnyworld Arena.
that because of our recent updates with league progression, you now gain a lot more points per battle. So before, I think it worked on some kind of algorithm that it was based on how many kills you got versus how many deaths, something like that. But you would notice you would get somewhere between 10 to 15 points for every match won. At least that's what I recognize as my average. Maybe some people did a little bit better. Maybe you got as many as 20 points. But we went ahead and increased that. So in bronze, you actually get, I think, 50 points for every victory. Silver, it's 40. Gold, it's 30. And platinum, it's 20. I'm not in a champion yet, but I suspect that it's going to be 10. So now you advance through the different tiers in each league a little bit more quickly. So what this means is you're going to go from bronze to gold much more quickly than you would have before, at probably, if I had to guess a rate, maybe 4 or 5 times as quickly, which means you can find yourself in Gold League and you're still not prepared to play against people who are, let's say, in Platinum or Champion League. So as good as a update as it was, so here we are, focusing on some of the action here. Wow, you guys are not playing to the objective.
An ally has been slain.
You just gave up on capturing the checkpoints and just fighting among yourselves. Oh well, so what happens is you might find yourself underprepared. So especially given the fact that what we try to do is prevent, what used to happen is you could have matches where it'd be 3 players against 1. And we try to limit that because that seems very unfair. So what we now allow is 1-on-1 and 2-on-1. But again, because once you've entered Gold League, you're eligible to play against anybody of any league, regardless of their league points. You might find yourself as somebody who's just recently started the Gold League. You might be playing against 2 people in Platinum or Champion League. So a Champion League, I think like the top 5 players or so are all above like 20,000 league points. You're talking about, let's say you're fighting somebody in like, 2 people in the top 10. One of them's got like 20,000 league points and the other one's got like 15,000. That's a total of 30,000. Meanwhile, you just started Gold League, you only have 5,000. That's a difference of 30,000 league points. They have far more experience than you have. They probably upgraded their scrolls a lot more often. They played a lot more games. They know every map in and out. They probably are a team of friends who played with one another, so they know each other's strategies. So it's a very big mismatch, and the likelihood of you winning under those circumstances is very low. So as good as these updates that we've been trying to do to balance things out to prevent new players from basically getting their butts handed to them from right out of the gate from just starting to play the game. I mean, yeah, you still have to play something like 200 games to get to Gold League, but these guys have played thousands of games. So it's still a little bit of a mismatch. But what we're trying to do is balance things in such a way where new players have a little bit of buffer time so they can get caught up, so they can familiarize themselves with the games, get more experience so that they can compete with the higher level players. But the problem with this is because we've made these different tiers, instead of allowing any player to play against any other player regardless of tier, what has been happening is it's kind of bottlenecking players and putting them in a situation where they're only encountering bots about 90% of the time. And this is a difficult thing to actually go ahead and fix. So let me go ahead and change the arena. So now we are in Capture a Flag. Okay, we got somebody with a little, seems like they have a connection problem. Alright, I'm gonna have to kick you. Alright, so we have another position open. Dagger. Alright, cool. So we'll go ahead and get this started if everybody's ready. So, like I've been saying, more and more you're finding that you're playing against generally bots about 90% of the time. And in some cases, it's like 99% of the time, depending on what tier you're in. So the lower tiers, it's almost always bots. It's very, very rare to encounter an actual player. And while it's a little bit more common in the higher leagues...
Welcome
oh wait,
to
we didn't do
Unnyworld
capture
Arena.
flag. Alright, we'll do capture flag the next round. So, while it's a little bit more common to encounter players at the upper leagues, it's still pretty rare. So what we're trying to do is find a good balance in which we can allow players to play against other players, but we still want to have it so newer players have a little bit of time to play catch up, so that they're not immediately being thrown into the game against seasoned pros, where they're going to wind up losing the majority of the games that they play. Then they'll probably get frustrated, and then they won't want to play anymore. They will be discouraged. When you're losing like 90% of the games and you can't progress forward because you're losing more points than you can gain, you're just going to get frustrated from the game and you're probably going to quit. So we want to find a middle ground between these two concepts. And this is a very difficult thing to manage. So one of the reasons that I wanted to start doing these podcasts so we can talk about these different features is so I can talk about these kind of problems to you guys openly, so we can get your guys' feedback on this. Because we don't have all the answers. We've been discussing this internally, we've been debating probably for the last couple of weeks, and we still don't have a consensus on this. Which is why we need your guys' help to give us some ideas. So I'll go ahead and give you guys some of the ideas that I've been pitching. But again, these ideas right now are too technologically difficult to implement. So in various other games that I've played, the way it works is what it'll do is it'll look at everybody who's currently queued up in the lobby. So all the people who are available for matchmaking will be in this one central lobby. And what it'll do is it will look at each character's league points, and it'll start to place players on each team in order to try to get the maximum amount of league points on each side to be roughly about equal. So, for instance, let's say you had a bronze, a silver, and a gold. So, let's say you had one player with 2,000, that would be bronze, right? Or would that be silver? I think that's still bronze. So, somebody with 2,000 league points, somebody with 3,000 league points, and then somebody in gold with 5,000. That would add up to a total of 10,000 league points in total. So what it will try to do is find 3 other players still in the lobby who will try to add up to that maximum amount. Now, this isn't always going to be possible because you might have an odd number of players. So you need 6 players, 3 on each side to start a game. Maybe you only have 5 players in the lobby. So there's always going to be a need for bots to fill in that last slot. But what it's going to try to do, or how it works in other games, what it tries to do, is to matchmake it in such a way where the two totals on the opposing sides are as equal as possible. So now we'll start. This is capture the flag. So what it would do is, like I said, you have 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. That adds up to 10,000. It'll look for the other side. Maybe you have a 3,000, another 3,000, and a 4,000. So that would be an evenly matched battle. You have 10,000 league points on one side and 10,000 on the other. But that's not always going to work. All right, so Dio, dead, dropped out. So we need to go ahead and advertise, try to get some new people in here. English. So, because it's not always going to even out that way, because you could have an odd number of people in the lobby, or the differences in league points within the people who are in the lobby could be, vastly different. It'll try to. So we have another connection issue. And now we have 2 positions available. This is general, so we'll post in Chinese maybe. Second. Go. See if that does it. We'll just kind of hang out in general for a few minutes, see if these slots get filled up. Another person has dropped out. Okay. Now, it's getting a bit annoying. I can't join. Are you on a different server, Cloud? You said you can't join? Maybe you're on the European server or something? So, now we only have two positions available. Oh boy. I mean, if we can't get enough people, I could continue and do this podcast, but I don't think you guys want to just sit here and watch me talk to myself for another 40 minutes. So, yeah, next week we'll definitely have to either do this on the European server or the South American server. Let me try to get some people in here. This is what I was afraid of, breaking up my concentration. So I have to stop in like mid-sentence. Oh. Do I suspect is happening right now? I'm going to go ahead and guess that one team probably won vast majority of those battles, and then the people on the losing side got upset and then left. So this goes right into the topic that I was talking about, that if you're losing more games than you're winning, it's going to decentivize you from wanting to continue playing. You're going to be discouraged. You're going to say, hey, I'm not making progress, I'm wasting my time, and you're going to move on to do something else. So this is very relevant to the topic of what I'm talking about. But to get back to what I was saying about matchmaking, so the idea is how it works in other games is it tries to find a way of calculating the max amount of league points on both sides and trying to make them equal as possible. But it's not always going to even out that way, so that's why you have different ranges. So the way it would work is it would be like plus or minus, let's say, 2,000 league points. So if you have on one side 10,000 league points, which is if you total up the 3 players that are on that team, what it would be is it would be plus or minus 2,000 from that. So the other side can be anywhere between 8,000 and say 12,000. So it'll be 2,000 lower, 2,000 higher, plus or minus. So they'll try to make the battles as even as possible. So we still have 4 positions open. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, this might wind up being a little bit boring here in the background, but I mean, I tried. We'll advertise again. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Again, we'll probably have to do this on the European server next week. So like I said, it's not always going to work out. So it's going to try to find a range. It would probably be within the 2,000 range. So it would find plus or minus 2,000 of whatever is the first team that was filled. So if the league points happen to be 10,000, it'll be anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000. If it happens to be 15,000 on one side, it will be anywhere between 13,000 and 17,000, etc. So in that case, basically it wouldn't matter what league you are. Even if you're in Bronze League, what the matchmaking algorithm is actually trying to do is just balance league points. So it won't matter what league you are, it'll try to balance it out on the opposite side. So if you have 1 bronze on one team, that's going to bring down the total average of league points down. It's going to try to put a bronze player on the opposite team. And if they can't get a bronze player on the opposite team, then it's going to put a bronze AI, so a CPU, there in its place. So this way you're always going to have a way of kind of balancing the two sides. Now, right now, that's too technically difficult. So whether or not that's something we could potentially do in the future is left to be seen, but it's not something we can do right now. So another thing players have mentioned is, why don't you just make the bots harder? You make the bots stronger. That way you get some level of competition even if you're not playing against other players, which is another thing we've considered. But again, that's also a little bit difficult to implement. So some of the ideas I had for that is, as you guys can see, when you upgrade your different spells, you have different levels. So the way it currently works is your regular spells, which are just like the gray scrolls, they go up to a maximum level of 10. The blue ones, they go up to a maximum level of 7, and the purple spells go up to a maximum level of 5. So the way in which you could potentially try to balance out the CPUs, they have like a sliding scale of difficulty. So as you progress through the different leagues and go up to upper tiers, they get progressively harder. The way you can do this is assign different spell levels for each league. So Bronze League, let's say all of those different spells would only be between levels 1 and 3. And then you get to Silver, and they would go up to like 2 to 4 or 2 to 5. Then you get up to Gold, and they would be between, say, 5 and 7 or something. Platinum would be between like 6 and 8. And then the final tier, Champion, would be probably between 8 and 10 or something. Another thing you could do is have a modifier on the actual attribute points, so their stat points, when you actually go to their screen and you go look up their different stats. So, for instance, I think Morth has an attack value of 85. So the way this would work is you would have modifiers. So in Bronze League, there would be no modifier. It would just be whatever their base stats are. In Silver League, it would be plus 5%. So it will look at all their different stat values and give them plus 5% on top of that to make them a little bit more difficult to kill. And then Gold League would be plus 10%, Platinum plus 15%, Champion plus 20%. So all of their stats would be 20% higher. So they would have higher damage, higher defense, and higher HP. So even if you can't improve their AI itself to improve their behavior, to make them smarter and more intelligent so they know how to capture checkpoints better or form, intricate strategies to take out players, even if you can't do that, what you could potentially do is increase their stats and make them just harder to kill by default. So they'll still behave similarly, but because they have higher damage, HP, and defense, they'll just be harder to kill. Now, this is the way it works in many like MMOs and just AAA games like Skyrim, for instance. If you ever played Skyrim on higher difficulties, the AI never really changes. The enemies are just as stupid as they are on easy. They just have higher damage and HP. So programming AI to perform at a higher level, to have increased levels of strategy and intelligence, is actually a very difficult thing to manage. But like I said, a way of kind of meeting a middle ground, a compromise between these two things, is potentially creating modifiers on their stats. Well, I thought we had a game there, but it looks like Gante dropped out. So we'll go ahead and advertise in a few more channels. My throat is already getting dry. Close and Global. No, that was English, I meant. This will be Russian. Listen. Oh, Dante's back. Now Morth chopped out. Alright, sorry about this, guys. You're just gonna have to listen to me talk to myself, I guess. So, actually, we'll post in Global again, because that was Spanish and Portuguese. So, like I said, a way of potentially making bots more difficult would be putting modifiers on their actual attribute points. So this way, if players are getting bored in the upper leagues because they're not playing against other players, at the very least, the bots will be harder. They give them that extra level of challenge. So in the meantime, the best thing that we could try to do is encourage players at the lower end to try to familiarize themselves with the games so that they can get to the upper leagues faster, so that they can actually compete with the people in Platinum and Champion leagues. So that's kind of what we're focusing on right now, is facilitating the transition for newer players to make it to the upper leagues, to provide the challenge for the people who are already in the upper leagues. So the problem with that is again, players are playing it mostly against bots. They're not playing against other players. Some players are losing interest over this. And then another thing that's happening is that players are kind of getting frustrated that they were able to move up the ranks, so from bronze all the way up to gold, rather easily, because you had these things, these progression limits, where once you've reached a certain amount of league points, you would automatically go to the next league. So what would happen is in bronze, I believe the way it works is for bronze
Your
3,
flag taken.
it's actually 500 league points. And bronze 2, it's
Enemy flag
1,000.
taken.
So 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, all the way up to gold 1, which is 8,000 to get to platinum 3. At that point, there is, wow, somebody's already got the flag. Good job. So the problem is once you get to gold 1, and then I think you require 8,000 league points to get to platinum 3. At that point, you can't progress any further through instant promotion. You're kind of deadlocked. Now you have to wait an entire week to progress to the next league or next tier in the same league. And what's happening is a lot of players are kind of moving quickly up the ranks. They get to platinum, and it's like hitting a wall. Once they hit that point, they get bored and they're like, well, now it takes me a whole week to get to the next tier. If I want to play long enough to get to Champion League, I'm going to have to play for the next 3 weeks straight. So this is frustrating some players, and players are kind of getting annoyed over this. And you'll see a lot of players, I've noticed in the Champion League especially, say, I'm getting bored of this game and I want to quit. Now, players who've actually made it all the way up to the Champion League, because of the higher levels of competition, it seems like they're a little bit less bored than people who are actually in the Platinum League below them. So one of the things you could potentially do to fix that problem is to have instant promotions for Platinum as well. Now, the issue with that is because of people are going from Bronze League up to Gold League too quickly, as some people have pointed out, if you were to have these instant promotion levels for Platinum, you might go from Bronze all the way up to Champion too quickly, and then you're too unprepared once you get to the Champion League. So the first fix I would offer is, this is pretty good. This match is already going on for almost 3 minutes and nobody scored a point, so it seems relatively even. So I'm really glad with this matchup we have so far. But anyway, so the first thing I would do is at the bottommost league, I think it's 500 points for Bronze 3. I would increase that to 1,000. And then subsequently, because you've increased Bronze 3 to 1,000 from previously being 500, now instead of Bronze 2 being 1,000, that would actually be increased to 2,000. So instead of 500, 1,000, 2,000, etc., it's now 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, etc., which means now instead of 8,000 from Gold 1 to Platinum 3, it is now 9,000. Then the next thing I would do is instead of having, at that point, 1,000 to go to the next league, or actually the next tier, I would increase it to 2,000. And you could potentially start this at Gold 2 to Gold 1. So you could either start this at the 8,000 point or the 9,000 point. It doesn't really matter. The whole point of this is to slow down your progression so it takes you a little bit longer to get the champion. So if you kept things the way I just initially suggested, where the only thing you're changing is Bronze 3 and changing that to 1,000 and subsequently adding 1,000 to each tier above that, if you keep with that, then it would be, I would add 2,000 to go from Platinum 3 to Platinum 2, then 2,000 again to go from Platinum 2 to Platinum 1, and then another 2,000 from Platinum 1 to Champion 3. This would add another 6,000 league points to go from Platinum 3 to Champion 1, which means your total amount at this point, because we've changed Bronze from 500 to 1,000, would be 15,000 to get to Platinum 3. Now, if we actually went back and changed Gold 2 to get to Gold 1, instead of having 1,000, so it goes from 8,000 to 9,000, if we instead made it 2,000, so instead of starting 2,000 at Platinum 3, we actually start at one below that, at Gold 1, then it would be 10,000 to start Platinum, which means it would be 16,000 to start Champion. So that gives you a lot of time to prepare yourself to get to Champion League. And then the other benefit of this is to prevent what we call backsliding. So what happens is, with Gold, as long as you get the requirement for the maximum requirement for instant promotion, which is currently 8,000, as long as you stay above 8,000, you can't backslide and make backward progression, or what we call regression, backwards down the tiers. So as long as you have 8,000, you're always going to be in Platinum 3 as long as you don't lose any points. You won't go backwards to Gold 1, then Gold 2, then Gold 3, etc. You'll always be locked in at Platinum 3. So by having these instant promotions throughout the Platinum League, it'll also prevent backsliding in the Platinum League as well. So what could currently happen... Wow. Do we have a glitch here? I'm seeing 0 versus 0. Did nobody score? What's going on here? I might be seeing a glitch. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the score here is updating, because on my screen I see 0 versus 0. And I think there's been at least a couple scores. Anyway, so what happens is again, as long as you have reached the 8,000 point total, you won't backslide. You won't regress down to Gold 2. So if you have these instant promotions in Platinum, as long as you meet whatever the instant promotion goal is for that tier, you won't backslide. So let's say it's 4,000 for Platinum 2. As long as you stay above... Wow, so the game is won. My score did not update whatsoever. That is very weird. It said 0 to 0. So who participated in this one? So we did get a few new faces. Hey, Lucas! Lucas participated. Good job, man. Thanks for helping out. So as long as you stay above 14,000, you won't regress back down to Platinum 3. So that prevents backwards progression, other words, regression. We'll go ahead and change the arena. Hopefully everybody sticks around. We're already almost 40 minutes into this, and we only had like half the amount of games we would normally get. So what would happen is, right now, because of the fact that there isn't an instant promotion, let's say you have 10,000 league points and you're in that would probably put you in Platinum 2, I think, right now, maybe Platinum 1, I'm not sure. Over a long enough period of time, let's say you don't play the game for a couple of months, you go inactive. What could potentially happen is enough players reach 10,000 league points so that you're no longer in the top 8, I think it's required for you to maintain your tier, and you'll actually start to regress. So if you take a couple of weeks off or you stop playing for a couple of months, you could return to the game and find that you went from Platinum 1 all the way down to Platinum 3. And even worse is if you made it all the way up to Champion League and you went, AFK, you went inactive for a very long period of time, say over a course of six months or something, you could potentially go from Champion 1 all the way down to Platinum 3 because of the fact that there's no instant promotion. There's nothing there to lock in your place. So you can regress all the way back to Platinum 3. Now, from my perspective, if I were a player and I worked really hard, got all the way up to Champion 1, and then decided I want to take a few months off, then come back to the game, and I went from Champion 1 all the way down to Platinum, 1 or 2 or something, because I haven't played that long, so players have had time to catch up and even surpass my league point total, I would be furious because of the fact that not only do you have to compete with them in order to, let's say you're in the top 5 or top 3 or whatever, not only do you have to gain all your points back and then some in order to compete with them, but on top of that, you have to ascend all these different leagues because you regressed back to Platinum. So now it's like double the amount of work. You have to spend weeks on end to get back up to Champion 1, and then on top of that, you have to grind for the league points to maintain your position in, the top 5 or whatever, whatever place you were before you left. So maybe you were top 10, and maybe you want to get back in the top 10, maybe you want to get back into the top 5 or something. But because you took that time off, you regressed all the way back to Platinum, and now you have to work yourself up all the way up that ladder. And it would be very frustrating. So from my perspective, if I were putting myself in the shoes of the player, it would decentivize me from wanting to play. I would see that, I would be, oh my god, it's going to take me 6 weeks to get all the way back up to Champion 1. That's too much work. I would be totally uninterested. I would say I quit, and I wouldn't want to come back. But if we had this instant promotion that locked in your tier so that you can't backslide all the way like that, so if we did it all the way up to, Champion 3, then the worst that you can do is backslide to Champion 3. which means it would only take you 2 weeks to get back to Champion 1. And you could potentially do this all the way up to Champion 1, but I'm sure the other developments would probably have a little bit of a problem with that. They wouldn't want you to be able to go all the way up to Champion 1 without any way of backsliding. Because you could do, once you get to Champion League, because I mentioned it would be plus 2,000 once you get the Platinum, maybe you do it plus 3,000 in Champion. So if it required 15 to 16,000 league points to be in Champion 3, maybe then it would require 18 or 19,000 to be locked in at Champion 2, and then like 21,000 or something to be locked in Champion 1. That would prevent backsliding. I'm pretty sure the other developers might have a little bit of an issue with this, though. They would want to have some level backsliding. So at the very least, what you could do is have it. So let's see some of the action. Nothing's going on over here, really.
An enemy has
so
been
we'll kind of
slain.
focus. All right, somebody died. We'll go back over here. So they're going to want to have a little bit of backsliding. So at least you should be able to be locked in at Champion 3. So this is why I propose you have the instant promotion for the different tiers in Platinum. So the other thing is in terms of competitiveness for high scores. So we're actually going to be doing sometime in the very near future kind of an overhaul on the high score system. And we're going to have something that's going to work to, it's almost going to be like a temporary high score system, but you're going to have forward momentum. So the way this is going to work is, let's say you gain 2,000 league points over the course of a week. And let's say that puts you at number 1. If you continue playing, you can maintain your score at 2,000 league points, whatever you're getting for that week. But if you stop playing, that total will start to go down because the high score will update every week. I know this sounds a little bit confusing. It'll make a little bit more sense when the system is implemented. But basically, it'll be like a weekly high score that updates probably every Monday. What was that noise?
An ally has been slain.
That was weird. I heard kind of like a ringing noise. So what will happen is it's kind of like a temporary high score. It updates every week, but you have forward momentum. So let's say it updates every Monday or something. But you've started playing Wednesday to start competing on this high score. By that Monday, the previous Monday's progress will be eliminated, so it'll only calculate the progress from that Tuesday to that Monday. So then by that Tuesday, the previous Tuesday's score is gone, and then et cetera, et cetera. So if, let's say, you started playing on a Wednesday, by the following Wednesday, it will have calculated all of your progress from that Wednesday to the next Wednesday. So you'll have forward momentum. So as long as you continue to gain more points,
enemy double kill.
It'll continue to increase your score. But if you go inactive for a couple of days or a few weeks, your score will be reset entirely. So the idea is it's supposed to be weekly. There might be a monthly one too. So let's see. In tracks, wow, 4 kills, very good. MVP of that round. So we'll go ahead and we'll do the missile defense now. But the idea here is to increase levels of competition, and this would be relevant to all tiers, no matter what league you're in. So even if you're getting 2,000 league points a week in bronze tier, you can still compete against people in champion tier because it's going to go based on, there's going to be different categories. So there's going to be one maybe on league points, maybe one on kills, maybe one on total damage, maybe one on total heals. So if you play a character like Akia, and when Lamia comes out and you want to be a healer for your party, it's going to calculate the amount of HP that you've healed. And there's going to be all these different high scores. And it's going to be competitive no matter what tier or league that you're in. So if you're gaining 2,000 league points, even in bronze tier, you're still competing against people who are in champion tier. So this is one of the ways to increase competitiveness so that you don't necessarily need to make it all the way up to champion league in order to have some level of competition with other players. So these are just some of the ideas that we have to in order to increase the competitiveness. So even if you're not facing against other players and you don't have that level of challenge, that is start the game. that you're still going to be interested in the game, you're still going to be invested and involved, you're still going to want to play because you're going to be able to compete with all these different high scores. And the idea is there's going to be kind of like, almost like you have the daily tasks, so you get rewarded with chests. There's going to be like weekly rewards. It's probably going to update every Monday, so the same way we update leagues. And it might be a reward of gems. Oh, I forgot to
Welcome
change.
to Unnyworld.
I forgot to
Arena.
change the arena. So you're going to have different rewards. So it can be gems and maybe unicoins. Maybe you get a chest or something. So these are certain things that I'm not sure we've completely worked out yet, but it's currently it's a planned feature for the very near future. So you should be seeing this sometime in the next few weeks. But the idea again is to increase competition to get players more involved and more invested and interested in the game. So even if you're encountering mostly bots, that's actually probably going to make it a little bit easier for you to be competitive on the high scores, because bots, because they're not as intelligent and not as difficult to play against over regular human players, it's going to allow you to do things like win more battles so you can get more league points more quickly, do more damage, heal more characters, etc. So even if you're only playing against bots, because all these different categories and these high scores, it's going to increase the competition. Hopefully that will offset the, I guess you can say, the monotonous playing against bots all the time. So we're trying to find ways to kind of stimulate activity in the game and making a compromise between all these different topics. So we get it. We know. We listen to you guys' feedback. We know some of you are getting frustrated with not playing against other players. We know some players find playing against bots very easy. One of the things that I've seen a few times is there'll be a player and they'll have nothing but bots on their team. So it'll be one player, two bots, and then they'll be placed in a match where it's two players and only one bot. And just by the fact that it's two players versus one, that is enough to offset it because of the fact that the other player only has bots on his team. So even if these other two players are a lower league, because they're more proficient at the game, they're more intelligent, and they're able to strategize, and they have some level of creativity, they can even defeat people at higher leagues just because of the fact that that person at the upper league only has bots on their team. So we're always trying to find ways of balancing things to make it so that you're not playing in like battle after battle where all you're doing is losing, because obviously if you're losing more games than you're winning, you're going to have negative league points. You're actually just going to go lower and lower and lower. And one of the things we actually did recently to try to balance that out a little bit is we reduced the amount of points that you lose from when you lose a game in half. So the way it used to work is we'll take Gold League for an example, which is, I think, 30 points if you win, and it used to be 30 points if you lose. So if you won 5 games and you lost 5 games, you would wind up breaking even. So a lot of players were frustrated with that because, again, if you won 50% of your games, it meant you made literally no progress for that day. So what we did is take the amount of league points that you lost per game, and we reduced it in half. So now if you won 5 games and lost 5 games, you only lost about 25% of your league points, and instead of half of them. So you're actually still making forward progress, even if you wind up losing half your games. And you could even lose more than half your games. You could wind up losing 2/3 of your games and still technically make progress. But these are one of the things that we implemented just recently in order to combat the effect of players potentially being mismatched and being put in positions where it's like 2 versus 1 or 2 versus 3 or something of that nature. So there's all these different things that we're trying all the time to increase balance, but we're trying to find a comfortable compromise between balance and also stimulating activity in the game. So we're trying to prevent players from becoming bored and disfranchised and wanting to go and find excitement somewhere else. So we know players are kind of, especially in like Platinum and Champion League, are kind of getting upset because they're playing against mostly bots and there's no challenge anymore. We're trying to find an intermediary between these two concepts in order to find the best of both worlds to keep basically everybody happy. So again, we're trying to keep it so newer players have a little bit of time to catch up with older players, but we're also looking for ways of keeping the older players engaged in the game so they don't lose interest. And these are just some of the ideas that I've come up with. We've been discussing internally behind the scenes, but we really need your guys' feedback on this. So what we want you to do, let me change the arena. Let's see if it actually updates this time. What we want you guys to do is go ahead and once this video is published, it's going to go on YouTube, but we're also going to put it in the forums, and we want you guys to go to forums and give us your feedback. So think about some of the things we talked about, and just give us your feedback on that, whether or not you like some of the suggestions we have, whether or not you think some of the ideas that I've mentioned need some tweaking and some improving before we actually implement it, and maybe you have your own ideas that you think that are even better than any of the things that I just suggested. So if you have your own unique ideas to try to find balance, where we can try to, maybe find an easier way of creating an algorithm that can balance it so that you have an equal amount of league points on both sides, or maybe there's some kind of checklist where maybe it tries to match a bronze and a silver and a gold versus another bronze, a silver, and a gold, something like that. If you guys have any kind of ideas on how we can actually go ahead and implement that, go ahead and let us know. And if you have ideas for improvements, maybe you have a better idea, better suggestions for balance and league progression, again, please let us know. Your feedback is very important to us, and these are the type of things we need moving forward in order to benefit the game. So right now, the major topic that we're discussing internally is player retention, because what's happening again is a lot of players are basically becoming more and more inactive, especially at the higher tiers, and we're trying to find ways of stimulating activity. So what we want to do is keep all players happy, because every community, especially in gaming, you can think of it as kind of shaped like a pyramid. So the bottommost tier, so Bronze League, is where you're going to see the biggest concentration of players. And as you move up the tiers and you get closer and closer, the top begins to narrow. So when you look at, like, let's say Champion 1, there's probably only about a dozen or 24 people actually at Champion 1. But when you look at Bronze and Silver Leagues, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of players down in these two bottommost leagues. So if we were to focus on updates and features to appeal to just the Champion Leagues, to keep the topmost players active and interested in the game, what would happen is we would be neglecting all the people at the bottom. So you might say, well, who cares about balance? Why don't you just let bronze players play against champions? And if they're not good enough, they'll have to play against champions to the point where they'll either get good or quit. But the problem with that is you got so many people in bronze or silver league that if they do wind up quitting, if they get frustrated in the game because they can't win, you're going to have more people leaving than coming in, and
your team takes the
just
lead.
From a business and a game design perspective, that's a terrible idea. So we can't have it so champions are playing against bronze exclusively. What we could do is, like I said, if you have a champion on one side, you could also have a champion on the other side, and then it doesn't matter if you have a bronze on both sides because you have somebody of equal skill on both sides. But again, this is something that's kind of difficult to implement. So we need your guys' ideas. That's the bottom line. We need your feedback. We need you guys to tell us what your ideas on this are. What's more important to you, fighting against other players at lower leagues or having that level of balance? So for instance, like I said before, the way the tiers currently work is once you get to, I think, Gold 3, at 5,000 league points, you're eligible to play against anybody regardless of tiers. So, well, you can't play against people below you, but you can play against Platinums, so you can play Gold 2, Gold 1, Platinum 3, and so on, all the way up to Champion. So maybe you think that's okay. Maybe you think once you enter Gold League, it's perfectly fine to be one-on-one versus somebody who's in Champion. Maybe you're like me and you see it from the perspective of like new players and see that if you've, because of the fact that you're playing mostly against bots, and you're progressing through the different tiers rather quickly, by the time you get to gold, you're really not prepared enough to play against people in champion leagues. So anytime you do play against somebody in platinum or champion, the likelihood that you're going to lose is almost guaranteed. It's very, very high. Unless you're like an exceptionally good player and you have a very long experience playing in different MOBAs, so you maybe like Smite and League of Legends, so you're already familiar with this kind of game mechanic. You're probably going to find a lot of difficulty playing against players in upper leagues and tiers. So we want your guys' opinions on this. What do you think? Do you think that 5,000 is okay? Do you think it should be increased? Personally, I think once you get to platinum, at that point, you should be ready to take on champions. Especially if you implement my idea with the instant promotion by adding 2,000 to the total amounts. So by the time you get to platinum, you should have a league point total of between 10 and 12,000. By that point, I think you've played enough games. You should have had enough time to upgrade your spells. You should be decent enough in the game to take on people in higher leagues. But I think gold might be a little too low. Now, maybe you guys disagree. This is why we need your feedback. So we have a couple players dropping out. That's okay. I mean, the stream's almost over. I thank you guys for participating. I know we had a little bit of problem finding matches. This is pretty early. It's also a weekday, so a lot of people are in school. And the older players, a lot of people are still at work. So, maybe next week we'll try to find a server that has a little bit more activity. So we'll probably do South America or Europe just to fill the matches a little bit quicker. But, just to reiterate, so right now what we need your guys' feedback on is matchmaking. So to find a balance in order to make sure that new players are encouraged to continue playing and they're not being placed in situations where they're losing more games than they're winning. But we also want to make it so players are also encountering more players more often. Now, obviously, if we can get more players to play the game, that solves a lot of issues right there. So if you guys can get your friends, maybe recommend the game to your family members, any kind of advertisement would be very, very appreciated. The more players we can get, the better. So that would certainly help. But in the meantime, we need to look for short-term fixes for these potentially long-term problems. So we need your feedback. We need to brainstorm ways so that players can play against other players, but do so in a fashion that it promotes, fairness, so that people aren't being placed in one-sided battles and constantly losing. And at the same time, I think we should be implementing league progression, so these instant promotions for platinum tier, but also slightly increasing it for the lower tiers. Like I said, that 500 for bronze 3 should be increased to 1,000. Subsequently, every tier above that should be added 1,000. So now the highest one, which is currently gold 1, which is currently 8,000, would be now 9,000. And then from there on out, it should be 2,000. So that it would require 15,000 to be in Champion 3, but as long as you gain that 15,000, you would be locked in Champion 3. You wouldn't be able to backslide back to Platinum tier. So this way, if you take a few weeks off from the game, you take a few months off from the game, you could always come back and you could always jump right back into the competition because you don't have to work your way all the way back up to Champion. So that's just what I think based on my perspective. Again, we want to get your guys' feedback and opinions on this. So when this goes live on YouTube and gets posted in our forum, please let us know what you think. If you have any of your own ideas, go ahead and let us know. It will, we would very appreciate it, and it very would help, much help the future of the game. So it's been about an hour. My throat is so incredibly dry right now. I think we can go ahead and, maybe close this out. So before we close this out, actually, so we'll cancel match. Again, I apologize, guys. I should have had the foresight to have predicted that we were going to have a little bit of a problem finding players to actually join. I should have gone to either the European server or South American server. I'll remember next time. So this isn't as much as an issue next time around. So let's see what Neri's dance looks like. Go ahead and close out the podcast with this. There you go. Yeah, move it, Neri. Show these guys what you're made of. So, next week, we're going to make this a weekly topic discussion podcast, and next week we're actually going to be discussing guilds. So, a lot of new features that we potentially want to implement for guilds. You guys want to stay tuned and check that out. Again, when this video goes live on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the other videos on the channel and make sure to do the same. If you guys want to help support the game financially, go ahead and check out the Steam store where the Founders Pack is currently being sold. And you can unlock characters like Neri and check out these guys' dances like this. So you guys could go ahead and experience this on your own time. And if you're feeling extra generous, go ahead and check out our Patreon and donate. The more money we can get, the faster we can, crank out these updates and implement all these features. I can't tell you guys, we probably got like a blackboard of like 1,000 different features that we want to implement, but the problem is prioritizing things. So there's certain things that we want to do before others. So for instance, boss mode, we definitely want to have that prepared. The idea was to have that prepared by Halloween. Unfortunately, we're just not going to be able to meet that time frame. So we definitely want to have it done by Christmas. We want to have planet edit done, and I think group invasions. So those are the 3 big ones that we want to probably have done before Christmas. So we want to implement these bigger features before we focus on some of the smaller things. But game balance and league progression is also very important. So that's why we're discussing it this time. But guilds. Next week is going to be guilds. So make sure to stay tuned for that discussion. And again, I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time. Thank you, and have a beautiful day.